Hi, this is Don with Ridge Engineering. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about a new feature that we've recently added to PC Travel, the ability to use GPS data loggers to collect your data in the field. Up till now, most people have used a standard GPS receiver with a laptop or a notebook in the vehicle, and they work fine. But there is a new class of GPS receivers that are available now that are called data loggers, and they have their own memory in them. And because of that, you don't need to have a laptop running any special software. You just bring the data logger out. So we've been asked to look at those, and we've looked at a couple, and we have a couple that we now support, and that's going to be the topic of this tutorial. Show you how we're doing that work and how it works in PC Travel. So what we're talking about are data loggers, and here's an example of one that we like. This is getting a little bit old and a little bit harder to find, but we like this one. This is called the GlobalSat DG100, and one of the reasons that we like it is because it allows you to connect an external antenna to it, which allows you to put an external antenna on the roof of your vehicle, which gives you a little bit better reception. Normally, these data loggers are designed to go inside the vehicle, typically up on the dash, and that works pretty well, but it never will work quite as well as if you have an antenna on the roof. So, if you have a way of buying one of these, we recommend them. You can get the external antennas for about $18 from Amazon, and the DG100 costs about $58, and at the moment I'm doing this tutorial in late January of 2012. You can still find them on Amazon, and I'm sure you could find them on other places on the internet. There are lots of other data loggers. Here's another one called the Columbus V900. A little bit more expensive. It has more features, whiz-bang stuff in it. It has a removable micro SD card, which might be useful. We've tried that, and it also seems to work pretty well. Now, one of the problems with these data loggers is there is not a standard data format for the data that they collect. So if you find another data logger and you want to use it, we might have to modify the software in PC Travel in order to support it. But that's okay. If you find a data logger that you like, let us know. We'll take a look at the data, and what we want to do is build up a series of routines for commonly used data loggers. And so we'll do the interface for you, probably for free, although don't quote me on that. Alright, so the basic idea is instead of having a laptop connected to the GPS receiver, you just have this data logger. It goes in the car, and typically you would drive out to the start of your route, stop near the beginning of the route, and get this started. And it has a light on it that tells you that it's collecting data. So you get it started, and if you're using an external antenna, then you use that. If not, you put the data logger up in the dash, and then you just drive back and forth, and you never touch it. You don't do anything to mark nodes or mark the beginning and end of runs. You just drive back and forth over the route as many times as you want, and then when you're done, you turn it off and bring the data logger back to the office. And this particular data logger connects to your computer with a USB cord that is sort of cleverly mounted inside the housing. Others just have a connector that plug into a connector on the side of the data logger and then connect to your computer. So in any event, you'll connect this up to your computer when you get back to the office and run PC Travel. So this is the startup option for PC Travel, and there's a new button called Process Data Logger Data, and at the moment it only supports the GlobalSat DG100 that I just showed you, but as I said, in the future we'll probably support other data loggers as well. So click on the Process Data Logger Data button, and it brings up a screen that asks you to point to a data file that you've created from your data logger. The DG100 data logger comes with software. You run that software and it extracts the data from the data logger and creates a file, and it's in a proprietary format called the .gsd file, and that's the file format that the software is looking for now. Now, we had a customer that did some sample runs and sent us the data, and that's the data that I have here for this tutorial. I created a folder called DataLogger Test Data, and in that I have the DG100 test data file that the software that came with the data logger created. So I'm going to pick that. Now, if you're used to PC travel, then the operation of the software is pretty much the same as processing regular GPS data. The one difference here is what we have is one long continuous run of data, but the driver actually made multiple runs in the field. Now, in the field, another thing that they did is they used a worksheet to mark down the starting time and ending time of each run and the direction. And you don't have to be very fussy about this, just to the nearest minute is fine. But it is important that we know roughly when runs started and when they ended, because we're going to go through the data and we're going to break the runs into individual runs. So I know that the first run started around 9:38 and it went to 9:46, and then it took a couple of minutes for the car to turn around and start the westbound run. So it started around 9:48. So somewhere between 9:46 and 9:48 is the transition from the first run to the second run. Same thing between the second and third run. So make sure that you have something equivalent to this form, fill it out, and bring it back to the office when you process the data. So I'll be referring to that. So what we want to do is we want to go through the data and find the point where the first run ended and the second run began. And remember, that was between 9:46 and 9:48. So I'm going to scroll down until I get to 9:46, between 9:46 and 9:48. So that's somewhere around here. And you can see from this in the speed column that the vehicle was moving and then it stopped for quite a while. So this is when the vehicle stopped to turn around. There's a nice long series of essentially zero speeds. So I'm going to pick, I know that this is between runs 1 and 2. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the new run button, which is down at the bottom, which makes it turn green, and that enables this mode that we're going to be using. And then I'm going to click on the row where I want this run 2 to start. And what the software does is it takes all of the run numbers from the point that I clicked to the bottom, and it adds 1 to that. So now we have run 1 separated out, and now we have this long continuous run that is being called run 2. And so now I need to find where run 3 starts, and that's between 9:57 and 9:58. So now I'm going to scroll down to 9:57. And there's really no way to speed this up. We don't know exactly where these are. You could jump through it, jump down a little bit, guess. This is probably a better way of doing it. So we're still learning how to do all this. So somewhere around here, now again, between 9:57 and 9:58, Here's another nice row of or consecutive lists of essentially zero speeds. So somewhere in here, I'm going to click, and now we've segmented out run 2. And again, I want to look for the beginning of run 4 is now between 10:06 and 10:08. So I'm going to jump down to 10:06, somewhere around here. Again, there's this nice row of where the vehicle stopped for a while. Makes it easier on us. And I'm going to pick a point in the middle of all that stuff. So now I have created 4 separate runs, or at least demarked 4 separate runs. And now I want to fix the missing data. Now again, if you're familiar with PC travel, you know that every once in a while the GPS will miss a second of data as it goes through a bridge, under a bridge or whatever. And the easiest way to do that is just to click and fix all speeds. So we do that, and it goes and it finds the missing speeds, and it interpolates the value based on the values around it. And it does the same thing for latitude and longitude. And now the OK button is green, which means all of the data is fixed. We have 4 runs. So now we're going to process the data. Now, if you're familiar with PC travel, the rest of this is just standard PC travel. And for this tutorial, I'm not going to take it much further. But I will at least show you what the data looks like on the map. So if you're used to PC travel and all this is familiar, really, you can stop now. But if you're relatively new and you want to see, okay, what do I do now? Then we can continue. So I'm going to create a study group called DG100, for lack of a better one to use. And then I'm going to put these 4 runs in that study group that I created. Now normally you would create one study group for the eastbound and one study group for the westbound. I won't bother with that right now. So I'm just going to move these runs in there, and then I'm going to start a new travel time run, and I'm going to add some runs, and we're going to go find those DG100 runs. And first I'm just going to pick the odd ones because I know that those are the eastbound runs. And I'm going to select them, and then I'm going to map them. And I'm going to select one of the runs. I'm going to update it. And now I'm going to zoom in and take a look at what this data looks like. And so you can see that this vehicle, here's the start. It started up here, and let's say that this is going to be our real start point. So we're going to go trim start. Then I'm going to go to the end of this. Now remember, this is actually the transition between runs 1 and 2. And let's say this North Gateway is where we want. Okay, and now I'm going to mark this as trimmed. I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to show the other one. And again, I'm going to trim it. It takes a little while because it's going through all those points that are one on top of one another. I'm going to go to the beginning. And I forget where we started. You'll remember though. Trim start. And now we trim that. And we're going to save it. And so now we have 2 runs that are trimmed. Now this is very quick. If you're not used to this map, then take a look at the other tutorials that have to do with the map. But I just wanted to show what the data looks like when you when you trim it, because depending on what points you picked in the run, you're going to have quite a few points at the end that you have to get rid of. So that's it very quickly. I showed you how to process the data from the data logger, and really the major change to the software is in the View GPS data screen, where you segment the one long run as it's coming out of the data logger into separate runs. If you have any questions, and if you find another data logger that you'd like to use, let me know. If you can't find a DG100, let us know, because we have a few here that we've bought, and maybe we'll have some other sources for them as well. Okay, good luck, guys.